Well, hello and welcome to today's session. I'm excited about this one. This one, I believe, is one of my favorites because it impacted me on such a personal level when I first studied it and learned it. Today, we're talking about our worship focus, and there's going to be three things that we're going to pull out of a couple of scriptures that are important for us to remember as worshipers and as leaders of worship. Let me read you the two scriptures, and then we'll start to look at each one of the three in a little bit more detail. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 8 says this: At the time, the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the Lord's covenant, to stand before the Lord as his ministers, and to pronounce blessings in his name. And these are their duties to this day. The other passage is found in 2 Chronicles 29:11. And it says, the Lord has chosen you to stand in his presence, to minister to him, and to lead the people in worship and present offerings to him. Now, there's three things that we can take out of this. We minister to God, we carry the presence, we bless the people in his name. What does it mean to minister to God? Well, it means that first and foremost, we worship an audience of one. In order for me to serve well, which is what ministry means, to minister means to serve. In order for me to serve well, I have to be receiving from God himself. So I need to minister to his heart, to receive his heart, be transformed by his heart inwardly, and then allow that transformation and love to flow through me in what he's asked me to do. It's much harder to do ministry on my own. But if I stand in the presence of God and I receive from him and I minister to him, he then begins to speak into me and give me his heart for people, which quite honestly, no one loves God's people more than God himself. So we minister to him to receive of him and be transformed by him. So our first priority is to minister to God. Our second one to remember is that we carry the presence. In those times, to carry the Ark of the Lord's covenant meant that you were actually carrying the presence of God with you everywhere you went. That's a reminder to me that it's not my responsibility to carry the burdens of people. I may have a heart for people and I may want to see people set free, but I don't have the capacity to do anything about those situations. However, I do have the presence of God and I carry that with me so I can cultivate an environment where I usher in his presence and I host his presence and I carry his presence into the room no matter where that is, no matter what setting that is. It's not limited by a location, but I get to carry what used to be the Ark of the Covenant. Now I have become a place where the presence of God dwells and I carry his presence. Now, there's a couple of passages that are very interesting for us to take a look at when we talk about carrying the presence of God. In 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 3, let me read it for you real quick. So they set the ark of God on a new cart, and they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on a hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. Now, what had happened there, the Ark of the Covenant had been stolen in a battle, returned, but when it was returned from the Philistines, it was placed on a cart. Well, we just read that the tribe of Levi was set apart. They were the ones chosen by God to carry the ark. And so as this ark comes back on a new cart, David, in his own ignorance at the time, just assumed that they could carry the presence of God, the ark of God, on this man-made cart into Jerusalem. And then, of course, Uzzah and Ahio, they're part of the whole thing. Uzzah reaches out his hand and he gets struck and he dies. And then David has this moment of trying to understand what is happening. And then we see that revelation in 1 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. And it says this: Then David said, no one but the Levites may carry the ark of God, because the Lord chose them to carry the ark of the Lord and to minister to him forever. So there's a wrong way and a right way. The wrong way means that I try to do it in my own man-made way, but the right way is to understand that God has placed his presence inside of me, and it was his work, and all I can do is surrender to it, become aware of it, learn how to usher and host his presence. We get to carry the presence of God. What a privilege, and what a thing as a worshiper, huh? And then the last one, to bless the people in his name. One of the questions often asked is, how can we be a blessing to others? And I think this verse says it as clearly as I would hope for it to say. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, but you are not like that, for you are a chosen people. You are royal priests, a holy nation, God's very own possession. And as a result, you can show others the goodness of God. You can demonstrate, show forth, show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. You see, worship is expressed. It's modeled. We lead it. We teach it. We demonstrate it. And we get to show it to others so that they can learn as well. But it's important not to mix these up. See, I cannot bless the people until I've had time with the Lord and I've had time to minister to his heart. And as I minister to his heart, I get filled with his presence. And when I'm filled with his presence and aware of who he is, then I get to minister to God and bless the people in his name. In a later session, I'll give you some very practical things you can do. But what I want you to take away from this, most of all, is that we worship an audience of one. And that worship is unto God and God alone. He deserves it. And all of our worship goes to him from our hearts. And our highest priority may be there may be a lot of things we need to get done, but our deepest and highest priority is always to have and go after the heart of God as his children. And then we become transformed, and as we carry the presence, we get to serve others and bless them in his name. That's all I have for you. Until the next one.